Well, moving now to health headlines, new reports this week say Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s lawyer has asked the FDA to revoke the polio vaccine. This lawyer is now helping RFK Jr. pick federal health officials for the incoming Trump administration.
It's something that's raising concerns for the medical industry. For more, we bring in our 90s medical expert, Dr. Payal Kohli. Welcome, Dr. Kohli.
Hi, guys.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the history of this vaccine?
It's really fascinating if you think about it. So 1955, the single day 1955, when Dr. James Salk announced that he may have found a vaccine that was effective against polio, they were clanking pots. Every factory was blowing whistles, because this was literally a life-changing disease. It had paralyzed millions of Americans, and then they had this vaccine. And it's an inactivated vaccine that he discovered that has now, in the next 70 years, really changed the landscape of polio, especially in this country where it's been eradicated.
Right. So one of the reasons for this is, one of the reasons that the claim is being made is that the vaccine wasn't tested against the placebo. Can you explain a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, so when we do a clinical trial, we say, okay, you get the treatment and you get placebo, sugar pill, or no treatment at all, and then we count up to see what happens to who. That's how we study. That's called the gold standard. That's the best way to study an intervention. Back in 1955, when this vaccine was released, they did do a randomized controlled trial. In fact, with first and second graders, 1.8 million Americans, where they randomized first and second graders to get it, not get it. And the doctor at that time actually said it was unethical to randomize because this was a life-saving vaccine, but it proved that it was a life-saving vaccine. Now, fast forward 70 years later, they're saying this particular manufactured vaccine, the Sanofi vaccine, has not been tested, but it's really the same type of vaccine. So we don't have to keep proving the same thing over and over again just because you have a different manufacturer.
Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah.
So if this does happen, what are some of your concerns?
I am extremely concerned. In fact, the whole medical community is extremely concerned because if you think about it, polio is still present. Now, here in the United States, it's been quote unquote eradicated, but just a few years ago, we had an individual who was unvaccinated who presented with paralysis. That was his first presentation of polio because it is a virus that can cause no symptoms at all. So you don't even know you're infected until it progresses to the point where it damages your nerves, you get paralyzed. So we've got the virus, and if we stop vaccinating people because of concerns, or we start doing placebo-controlled trials on something that we know works, you could end up with a rash of people showing up with paralysis as their first presentation because the virus could sort of spread silently without us realizing it. So this is really opening up Pandora's box on something that's gone away. It's in our rearview mirror for us in the US and some other countries. We're opening it up again.
Because we know that vaccines are safe and effective. I mean, things like the flu shot, the COVID vaccine, that's how we got out of the pandemic, quite literally, right?
That's exactly right. And I think especially for these types of infections where they don't manifest with symptoms and can have life-threatening neurological complications that are not treatable, you do not want to reverse the clock on this. Because if you make it so that everybody's not vaccinated, one of the reasons that we've eradicated the disease is because of herd immunity and vaccinations that are widespread. Now, there's two types of vaccinations. There's the inactivated that I talked about, which is a killed virus. You cannot get polio from an inactivated vaccine, and that's 99% effective if you get 3 doses. So highly effective, highly safe. And then, of course, there's the oral polio vaccine. This one's a little trickier. We don't have it here in the US, but in other countries where they don't have access to needles and such, they can just give it in your mouth. But it's an attenuated, it's a weakened virus. That one can wake up and cause problems, but we're trying to get rid of using that altogether.
Well, Dr. Kohli, thank you. As always, we really appreciate all of your insight.